In 1973, a 38-year-old mother of three decided to take a chance on her dreams. She enrolled at her local community college and signed up for a theater course. The rest is history. Christine Houston took this opportunity to launch a famed television career, which included the creation of TV's 227 and stints as a staff writer for sitcoms like Punky Brewster and The Jeffersons. Her journey is remarkable. She is an Air Force veteran, professor, author, actress, and a graduate of Kennedy King College, one of the city colleges of Chicago. We have her exceptional story right after this. Christine Houston, it is an honor to be here with you today. So I am extremely excited, not only as a professor here at Kennedy King College, but I'm more excited as someone who's known you for many years, who's watched you, and has been mentored and inspired by you as a relative in that way, which is kind of a unique part of the story. But I want to know about your journey from Kennedy King College students to Hollywood legend. How did you go from being a student in the city colleges of Chicago to being in Hollywood with just in a few short years?
Well, to be truthful, it was a surprise to me. When the students there, who were much younger than me, asked me what my major was, I really wanted to say, I want to be an actress. But that was ridiculous because where could I get a job in Chicago as an actress? Plus, I had 3 teenage sons and a husband. And so if I were going to be an actress, I would have started years before. Well, I had taken a lot of writing classes, and I decided to tell them I was a journalism major.
Now you had you'd taken the classes, but you'd never done journalism either. You were no more a journalist than you were an actress.
No,
But
I
it
just
sounded better.
love writing. I excelled in English, and I felt that journalism would be believable.
Gotcha.
So they said, oh, good, write us a play. We've always wanted to win this contest, but we didn't have any writers. Will you write us a play? I said, well, let me think. I had an instructor that said, if you want to be successful with the first thing that you write about something you know about. So I said, well, what do I know about? I know about me. Then I thought, what would interest an audience for 2 hours talking about yourself?
So let me stop you for a second. So you're saying that 227, which was not 227, which was 227, which I know you're going to get into in a second.
Yes.
That was the first thing you ever wrote?
First thing.
Wow.
Other than term papers.
That's pretty amazing. That's actually very amazing. So they asked you to write a play, and you wrote about your experiences. 227. Tell us about the title.
Well, I thought about writing about my childhood and my best friend. And I said, maybe a play about relationships and how you can grow up with a person and be friends for years and years and years. And that's what happened between me and my best friend. So I decided to write a play about how close we were. And how, as adults, we're still close. And as I was writing, I thought about her mother. Well, I feel that laughter and comedy is in every phase of life. So without trying to be a comedic writer, I just decided to tell the story. It came out funny, but it was not because I originally intended it.
Now, 227 was your address.
227 was my address, East 48th Street.
East 48th Street,
which
right here
is
in Chicago.
now Bronzeville.
Interesting, interesting. And so you wrote about all the characters in your neighborhood, on your block. What was your favorite character? Because I know for a fact, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but I know that when you wrote the play, you had many, many characters, and as it transferred into TV, you kind of took some of the characters down. But you had a lot of people, a lot of characters on this block. What
Well,
was your favorite character?
I dealt with mostly the ones in the building.
Okay.
It was there were 4 flats in the entrance where I lived, 4 on each side, so that made 8. So I dealt with the people that lived in that at 227. Then I brought in, because I liked the blind man on 47th Street, I brought him in just for theatrics. Then I had a neighborhood young guy who came around, and then I had the people next door and the mailman. So I just used them all.
And did a lot of them make it, those characters, the blind man, make it to TV? Was that?
No, they
Okay.
put Helen Martin in the window to be a person who gossiped all the time.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so let me, because I keep wanting to fast forward because I'm so excited about this conversation, interested in this. So you wrote the play, and what happened?
Well, it was entered. First, I wrote it for a small theatrical contest. And it won. And the head of the theater department at Kennedy King at that time thought, well, maybe we should produce this in the small theater. And he did. And it was so well received by faculty and even outside people who would come into the college just to see that play. So he decided that he would enter it into a contest. There's a contest for college students based at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. And you have to be a college student in order to enter, but you can be any age, obviously, because I was much older than the average college student. But it was entered into the Lorraine Hansberry and the Norman Lear, and it won both of them.
And Norman Lear at the time was the creator of All in the Family, The Jeffersons.
6 television shows at that time he had on television. All in the Family, The Jeffersons, Good Times, Sanford and Son,
Wow.
One Day at a Time,
Wow.
and Different Strokes.
Now, I never knew Different Strokes. See, that's actually my favorite sitcom as a kid.
Really?
Absolutely. I never told you this. This is all new to you today. But yes, I love the other ones and, of course, 227. But as a kid,
Yes.
I used to love Different Strokes. That's super exciting. So you applied. They sent your play.
They entered my play. They had bake sales because most of the contests you have to have an entry fee. So the students had bake sales and raised the money for the entrance fee.
Wow.
And I think it was $60.
So the students at Kennedy King College decided on your behalf to make sure you had the money because they believed in your play so much.
Well, it had won for them, and that's what they wanted. But the response was so unbelievable for them and for me, till they decided, well, let's enter it into these contests and see what happens.
And you won.
Yes. And
Because if you hadn't won, we wouldn't be here talking about this today, right? So yes.
probably not.
Okay. It'd just be a wonderful little play here at Kennedy King. You
Well-
won both of them, correct?
Well, they didn't really want to give me first place, Lorraine Hansberry. Norman Lear had only one place. In order to encourage other writers, they felt, well, since she's winning the Norman Lear, let's give her second place, Lorraine Hansberry,
Wow.
and give another student an opportunity. So I was satisfied just being,
Absolutely.
yes.
So as a result of winning, what happens next?
Well, part of my prize for the Norman Lear was an all-expense trip, 2-week trip to Hollywood, and to write a segment for one of his shows of my choice. And I chose The Jeffersons. The prize for Lorraine Hansberry was monetary, and Kennedy King got that. And I was happy that they did
Gotcha.
because I felt they deserved it. Had it not been for Kennedy King, my life would not be what it is
Wow.
now.
What an amazing, amazing story. So you go to Hollywood. Here you are. I mean, this is like, I mean, this is the American dream come true.
Dream.
I mean, you right. I mean, it's almost funny. I mean, it really is. I
Of course,
mean,
I'd rather have been on the stage,
of course, but you
I'm there.
and you had some level of real power because you were the creator of this stuff. So you get there and you're writing for the Jeffersons. So how do they then take your play and turn it?
8 years later.
Okay, so it took 8 years.
The head of the theater department at Kennedy King sent my play all over the United States. And one of the universities, I think it was in California, Northern California, Seaside, and another one, slipping my mind right now, but I'm going to think of it. They decided to do the production.
Okay.
And called me and asked me, since I had been to Hollywood, did I know anyone from Hollywood who could come and star in the production only for opening night to bring in the people because they didn't have much money for advertising.
Wow.
So I knew people from having been brought there for those 2 weeks and worked on the Jefferson show. So I asked Esther Roll
Wait a second.
from Good Time.
Wait, you knew people from being there for 2 weeks.
But I stayed longer than 2 weeks.
Gotcha.
It's such a long story,
Okay,
Ted.
I understand. We only have a limited amount of time.
That's right. Because in between the time that I won and the time that they did the television show, I did story ideas for almost all of Norman Lear's shows.
Wow.
And from 1979 to 1981, I was back and forth in L.A.,
Okay.
brought in by Norman Lear,
Gotcha.
all expenses paid.
So they asked you if you knew someone in Hollywood to star in your show.
Yes.
You asked Esther Roll. Esther
Yes,
Roll
and
from the Good Times.
From Good Times.
Yes.
And she was busy. So I knew the actors from Sanford and Son. So I asked Lynn Hamilton. She played Red Fox's girlfriend, Donna.
Gotcha.
So I asked her, would she do it? And she said yes. So they sent her a script. She learned the lines. She came in on Friday. The show opened on Saturday.
Wow.
And she was back out on Sunday.
Wow.
But she fell in love with the script.
Okay.
Took it to Hollywood. And at that time, Marla Gibbs had a theater.
Right. And Marla Gibbs was the maid on the Jeffersons.
The maid on the Jeffersons. And Lynn Hamilton brought the script back and told Marla, this is a great play, you must do it at your theater. Marla didn't want to do it because the main character had some things about her that made the audience want to dislike her.
Okay.
As the maid on the Jeffersons, they loved her. And she just did not want her image tarnished by being a character in a play that people wanted to throw tomatoes at.
Sure.
But she did it. And she couldn't close it. Every time she tried to close the show, she would get calls for people who wanted to book seats in the theater.
Wow.
So when the Jeffersons was coming to a close, they tried several avenues to keep her on television. They fell through. So then she invited them to come see her in 227. And each network bought out the theater. NBC took Friday night, ABC took Saturday, and CBS took Sunday. Since NBC saw it on Friday,
Wow.
it was a done
So the
deal.
networks were basically warring for this show.
The networks bought out
Interesting.
every seat. It was a small theater,
Yeah.
but they bought out and gave the tickets to their employees.
And so NBC got there first,
Right. And they said, we want it.
and they bought the show.
And CBS and ABC still saw it, but it was nothing they could do.
So at that point, where do you fit into all this?
I was there opening night.
Okay. But I know when you're dealing with big networks,
They
and
took out an option which stopped me for 90 days from doing anything with the show while they decided what they were going to do with it. And after they decided, they told me that they wanted all rights to my play. And my attorney said, how do you feel about that? And I said, I want to maintain stage rights. He said, well, you can't talk to them. I said, what do you mean? You can't talk to them because Marla says she knows you well enough that she'll be able to get all the rights.
wow.
And I said, well, I want my stage rights. I'm a playwright 1st. Did the theater at Kennedy King. I always want to be able to do the play.
Yes.
So I was told that there would not be a television show unless I gave up all rights.
So
And-
here you are. This is fascinating. Here you are, woman from the South Side. Now
Right.
you're dealing with NBC. NBC is saying to you, I want all your rights. You're saying, I'm not giving you all my rights. Marla Gibbs wants to use her relationship with you to try to persuade you to I mean, this is pretty amazing stuff. So how did you hold your ground? What did you do?
Well, I knew that they could very easily say, take your script and put it back on your closet shelf.
Yeah.
And we have plenty of material.
That would have
we
been
don't
my fear.
need you. But my lawyer convinced me that if I really wanted my stage rights, I needed to hold out.
Wow.
And I held out, and it was awful.
I'm sure it was. It was gutsy.
9 months.
Wow. So that 9 months, you were basically at home thinking they could just say, hey.
It was over.
Oh, wow.
It was over. And by me not having any background in television,
Yeah.
and I'm a novice.
Yeah.
And I was asking for things that they didn't have to give me.
Sure.
So
So what happens after 9 months?
I took the chance. I'm a gambler.
You are a gambler, and it paid off. Wow.
Well,
I don't think I would have done that, by the way.
Well, when you hire an attorney and you have confidence in him, of course he works for you. You tell him what you want, and he goes to get it. So since I hired him, and he was advising me, if you want your stage rights, hold out for it. And I did.
So 9 months, what happens?
I get a call from a friend of mine in L.A. who says, congratulations, your play is going to be a television series. I said, what play? 227. I said, no. Yes. It's in The Reporter and Variety.
So it
the
was.
two magazines that
Yeah, these are
the
big Hollywood
industry,
magazines. Yes.
swear by.
So you didn't wait. This was in the news already, and you didn't even know
And
about
I
it.
didn't know it. No, I didn't.
So what was the deal?
2 days later, Marla calls. And well, before then, they had told me no television show without all rights. And they gave me a deadline. And when the deadline passed, I didn't hear from no one after that. I was crying,
I'm sure you were. Oh, I'm sure you were.
real tears.
Yeah, I'm sure you were.
But my lawyer, every time he called, every time I called him, he said, "Do you want your stage rights?" And I said,
I
"Yes."
said, but not really. I mean, I do, but
He
yes.
said, "Don't talk to him. Do not talk to them. I'll talk to him."
Oh my gosh.
So,
I just went through a mortgage process, and the anxiety around trying to negotiate for little stuff in a house.
yeah.
I wanted to talk to the woman who was selling the house every day, and the lawyer told me not to talk. I can only imagine yours. There's no way I could have not talked to these people.
Well,
I'd have been terrified.
yeah. Plus, I was old enough for me not to be starstruck.
Gotcha.
When it happened to me, I was
Yeah.
40-some years old.
Sure, sure, sure.
And
Which is not old for the record.
I had a job and a husband and a
Okay.
family.
All right. I'm 40 something as well. Just for the record, that's not,
I had a life.
you had a life. You had things
I was
going on.
comfortable.
Yes, you are. So, okay, so here's the deal. So now they call you back. I mean, actually, they haven't called you. 2 days later, I'm sorry. What happened?
Marla calls me and tells me that I need to come to L.A., sign contracts. So,
You can get excited telling it. Yeah.
yeah, 2 days later, I was in L.A.
And they,
with my attorney, and this 8-page or 12-page contract that said they would pay me X amount of dollars for film rights and TV rights only. And they had the option to hire me or not hire me when they start to air the show. I was cool with that. Then a few days later, I was back in Chicago, and I was called to ask if I wanted to write the pilot. And I was excited. I can't even tell you how excited I was. But then the writers went on a strike. The Writers Guild says, and I'm a member of the Guild, you cannot work if there's a strike. You cannot negotiate. You cannot do no business when the writers are on strike. So the strike only lasted about a week at the most.
that was a long week for you, though.
It was a long week,
But
and
you've
by
been-
that time, they had seasoned writers
Sure.
writing, already ready to write on the pilot. So since they took my script and they used my lead character's name and basically the premise of my play, they had to give me the created by credit.
So you go and fascinating. So you go, you write, you move forward, and they start the show. What happens next?
Well, the writers start writing in June. The actors don't come back to work until August. And you should have at least 4 or 5, what they call in the can, so the actors can start working while the writers are still writing other episodes. So they went on. The show aired in September '85, and I was just getting my money for them taping the show. But around October of that year, Marla said to the executive producer, this woman was talented enough to write a play that gave all of us a job, and she's not working on this show? That's ludicrous. So they called me and asked me how would I like to come work on the show. And I went and worked 5 years.
5 years.
I think it was 5.
As a writer,
As a staff writer.
as a part of a team.
I was new in Hollywood, and believe me,
Sure.
I was lucky and fortunate
To get that.
to get that far
For a show you'd created.
for a show I created.
Wow.
But that's another story.
Oh, sure. So, but the show changed, right? So,
Yes.
the show, as we know, your play was called 227. The show,
Of course, when Hollywood buys something from you, they have to make it their own. So one way was to change how you say the name. Now, I wrote out 227, and they did the numbers 227, and that's how they got that.
They also moved the show from
Chicago
to D.C.
to D.C.
So the show on TV is set in D.C.
Right, and believe me, they would have made humongous mistakes had I not been on the show as a writer, because they were going by what happens in Hollywood. And they were writing scripts that depict street life in Hollywood. I fortunately had been to D.C. for summer vacations. So when they made a mistake, I called it to their attention. That's not the way it is in D.C.
Sure.
So they sent me, Marla, Hal, and executive producers, 2 of them, to D.C. for a week on a fact-finding trip.
Wow.
Wonderful. All expenses paid again.
To experience the culture.
Yes.
Interesting.
We met with the mayor and his wife at that time.
So your show was on TV for how many years?
5.
5 years. And it was very successful. It's still on TV today.
Yes, in syndication.
Yes. And so I mean, once again, as I said before, I've known you my whole life. We're related. My grandmother is your...
Don't say that so loud.
Don't say that so loud, okay. But I've admired you my whole life, but I did not know all of the nuances of this story. And so when I think about this, you were a real pioneer. I mean, when I think about an African-American woman creating a television show in Hollywood, there have not been many examples of people like you. I would imagine that it must have been very difficult. How difficult was it to sort of assert yourself in that world, to demand things, to command respect, to make sure that your work was what you wanted it to be? What was that like?
It was very difficult. In fact, very little did I say, especially knowing that it wouldn't have mattered, that I'm a staff writer, and they're hiring young Caucasian men to be editors, making twice my salary, knowing nothing about the black experience in America.
Interesting. Very interesting.
And they would ask me questions, and with my sometime militant attitude, if they ask me, well, what do you call your ministers in your church? You're writing for a show predominantly black. Go to a black church.
And
find out.
Sure. So you wouldn't give them the answer.
No.
I understand that.
And the other writers, of course, they would be upset with me.
Sure.
And they would say, you know, you're getting residuals. Don't mess it up for us. I said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Wow. Wow.
And I do not like the buffoon type. I like the character Jack Hay.
I was just going to ask about Jack Hay. You've read my mind, seriously.
She was not like that in my play.
But she became the star of the show, really. The
Yes.
show really became about Jack Hay.
Unfortunately, that information, that order came down from NBC.
Interesting.
Write more Jack Hay stories.
Interesting. That kind of happened with Good Times, with the JJ character, and other places like that. So it went off in a direction that you weren't excited about.
No, I definitely was not.
Okay. Well, we don't have forever. I wish I could sit and talk to you for hours, but I want to move to today, because you're still doing some really cool stuff, and you're still living a fascinating life. I mean, you're a professor. You've written a couple of books. You are an actress. You're obviously a comedian.
Well, I'm on the planet,
Okay.
Ted.
All right.
And for some reason, I was left here. Okay? Lots and lots of relatives and friends are gone.
Yeah, yeah.
As long as I'm here, I thought, why not do what you love doing?
Awesome.
So now I am doing fundraisers.
Okay.
I am teaching, writing for TV and screenwriting at Chicago State University. I took care of a husband with dementia
Yes.
for 8 years, and I documented what was going on, and so I wrote a book.
You have a very interesting way of turning tragedy and trial into comedy. And your book encapsulates that Laughing Through the Tears is the book about your husband. Tell us how you gained the strength to deal with a spouse with a debilitating disease and then find humor in it.
Well, first of all, I have a spiritual foundation. And I have in my heart to take care of people, especially members of the family who can't take care of themselves. I did it for my mother, my husband's mother, my husband's sister. And when it came his turn, well, I had made the commitment in the vow when I married him. And I knew that I could not just, I knew that if I went back to Hollywood to do what it was that I really loved doing and neglect him as a person in the stage that he was entering into, I just didn't believe that I would have good fortune.
So you came back from Hollywood, this vibrant career. You came back to take care of your husband.
Nah, not at first. While I was working, my mother had a stroke, a massive stroke. And I brought her back to take care of her. And as soon as she made her transition, my husband and I were ready to go back to Hollywood.
And then he got sick.
And he was diagnosed with dementia. And I had made the commitment, so I couldn't leave here. And like I did years ago, returning to school at Kennedy King, I wrote the play. I returned to school while taking care of him to Chicago State, and that's where I wrote the book.
You really proved that people don't have to always choose between taking care of their loved ones and living their dreams, and that it's really never too late. You know, you raise 3 boys and then you go back to school. You go to Hollywood, but then you come back to take care of your family. I think for me, and I'm a spiritual person too, I believe it's probably why you're so blessed in all the things happening, because you've put other people that you've cared about, you've cared about them. I think that's really amazing. So you write this book about him and you find humor. I'm assuming that it was also very therapeutic in some ways.
It was. It was very cleansing.
Yeah. Tell us a little about the book.
I cried a lot while I was writing it, and I laughed a lot. Because if you do not laugh while you are going through the trauma of taking care of someone with that disease, then you will never get through it. The humor I saw, well, I see humor in every phase of life. I don't know anyone who go through a day without seeing something or experiencing something that they could laugh at.
You write stories about him dressing up in your clothes accidentally and things like that in your
It
book.
wasn't funny when he did it, when he wore my, stretched my cashmere sweater by putting his legs in the sleeves, thinking it was his pants.
Wow.
But I saw the humor in it after.
Sure. Wow, yeah.
After I got angry.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
But-
yeah, you used that trial to bring joy to other people, because I know for a fact that you've done some work with dementia and Alzheimer's in the city of Chicago here,
Yes.
and you've been able to give people hope.
AARP gave me a very good book signing where we had a panel of professional people from the hospital and from the organizations, Alzheimer's and dementia. And I feel that I had to write the book if it didn't do anything but help someone who's going through that, get through it,
Wow.
because it's not easy
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
And especially if you're watching someone that you love get to a stage where they won't even recognize you or know who you are.
Yeah.
And by it being dreadful, in one sense, I wanted to let people know it's not all gloom and doom. And you have to laugh.
You really prove that, people say that I've read this as with writers and that sort of thing. I do some writing, but you shouldn't waste a trial or waste a tragedy, waste a story. And you prove that because, once again, by sharing that, you've helped encourage many other people. So you now are a professor at Chicago State, and you work with students every day, and you're acting. And what's going on with Christine Houston now? I mean, Christine Houston's not looking in the rearview mirror. Christine Houston looking forward. Tell me what you're excited about right now and what you're doing.
I wrote a TV pilot for Laughing Through the Tears. And that I'm trying to tweak it.
Gotcha.
So someone can look at it. I also adapted someone else's writing from screen to stage, and it's called Lemon Tea,
Okay,
The
gotcha.
Emancipation of Liberty. It's about a little black girl in the South who hates being black and feels that God made her black with nappy hair to punish her for killing her mother. Her mother died in childbirth.
Interesting.
And I'm also working on a production that takes place in September called Laughing Until You Cry.
Wow.
And it's 5 skits that I wrote about different everyday people.
Interesting.
And this young lady, Sherry, whatever her last name
Sherry.
is.
When she becomes
Sherry.
big, when she becomes
Sherry.
big and famous, that's all you need anyway is one name, right?
Right.
Like Oprah, Jack Hay, right?
Yeah,
So.
and other people be mad if I just promote her.
Exactly. So.
But she is very excited. This is her first production. She is an actress.
Okay.
So she's showcasing herself in a production similar to Carol Burnett's show.
Interesting. So you do a lot of adapting of other people's work, right? So
Yeah.
now adapting is a nice way of saying that you know how to rip other people's work apart to make it better as a professor. I have unfortunately felt your wrath as an editor in some things that I've written, but it's a wonderful thing because you really have a passion for the written word and making sure that it's done well and that it's put on stage or put in front of people in a good, strong way, right?
Absolutely.
Gotcha. So what have you learned over this time? Like if you could, because I know you're a professor and you share wisdom, and for someone who, maybe someone from this community who, we're on the south side of Chicago, we work with city colleges, I work with city colleges, maybe they're not even interested in being a writer, but your story is a story of inspiration. What have you learned over the years to help inspire the next generation?
Well, I hope that each day that I go into Chicago State to teach, that I can inspire and motivate a young male or female, doesn't matter their background, but their race. But I really hone in on African American writers because they have so little chance to really make it out here. And I just feel like I'm here for that purpose. And if I can let them know how important number one is education, doesn't matter. I believe that I got the best education at Kennedy King, a city college of Chicago, a 2-year college, junior college. I got a wonderful education compared to the one that I got later on at Chicago State. So I let the people that I come in contact with, young, middle-aged, older, it's never too late. It is as long as you are on the planet and as long as you have the ability to move and function, go after whatever it is that you want to do. And if it's nothing but volunteering to help someone, you get such gratification out of that. I do. And I think that many people who are my age and even older and younger, if you decide that you want to do something, just go and do it.
That's amazing. It really, really is. I am inspired. My students are inspired, knowing once again that an individual decision in your life to go back to school and to make the most of yourself had ramifications for thousands upon thousands upon thousands of other people. You provided jobs for people. I mean, it's just amazing. Here's another question for you. What do you think about TV today? I know you talked to me about Shonda Rhimes and the work that she's doing and how really she's sort of taken, you know, the things that you did to another level, because she's really in a way able to exert her dreams and her influence and that sort of thing. But what do you think about when you look at TV today? I mean, are you encouraged by it? Do you see the sitcom genre in a good way? Are you, discouraged by it? I mean,
It has changed. A lot of people were saying that social media was going to replace television. And in a way, it has taken over a lot, but I don't think television will ever just go away. It is just as important. Social media is a wonderful invention. And I tell my students that, especially those who go on Facebook, and I tell them Facebook is very important. Just don't abuse it.
yeah.
Don't use it for negativity. Use it for positive things.
What do you watch now on TV?
On television,
Other than reruns of 227, by the way, of course,
my
which everyone should
sons,
watch.
they fuss at me because I watch a lot of Lifetime.
Oh, you watch
They
Lifetime,
say
okay.
that's the male bashing station. I say no, they bash women too.
Awesome.
But I love comedy, of course.
Okay, wonderful.
Television has changed a lot.
Yeah, it has.
The things that they can get away with on television really cease to amaze me because they can say and do just about anything.
Yeah.
But wonderful thing about it is it has a knob.
And it can turn off.
You have a remote.
Yes, yes.
And you can get rid of anything that you're not approving of. And there's so many channels.
Well, I think our knob is being turned off right now. I think we're
Really?
Yeah.
Are we getting that sign?
We are out of time.
Are they doing this?
We are out of time. I know you thought we were going to be here for 4 hours.
At least.
At least 4 hours, and we could talk to you for 4 hours because it is amazing. Christine Houston, you are a living legend. You are a pioneer. You are an inspiration, and it is just an honor to be here talking to you today. And I hope that the message that people get from you is that no matter where they are in life or whatever dream they have, they can go after it, and it can come true. And if I've learned anything from talking to you and being around you for many years, is that is in fact the case. So thank you so much for today, and I wish you many blessings in all of the many, many, many things that you're doing going forward.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Thank you for joining us today. It has been an honor and a pleasure to talk to a living legend. Change is possible for each one of us. Go out and make a difference yourself. Thank you, and take care.